Andrew Jackson's presidency, 1829 to 1837. Andrew Jackson defeated John Quincy Adams in the 1828 presidential election. Jackson had 178 electoral votes, while John Quincy Adams only had 83 electoral votes. Andrew Jackson founded the modern day Democratic Party. Jackson's supporters were common men, meaning that they were farmers, laborers, frontiersmen, and Southern slaveholders. People compared Andrew Jackson to John Quincy Adams, who was born rich, graduated from Harvard University, son of a former president, and out of touch with everyday people. Supporters of John Quincy Adams called themselves Republicans or Whigs. Jackson and his followers began a new political party called the Democratic Party. The old Democratic Republican Party branched into two new political parties. The first was the Democratic Party, which was founded by Andrew Jackson and his supporters. The second political party was the Whig Party. The Whig Party opposed Andrew Jackson. Henry Clay and John Quincy Adams were well-known Whigs. In the 1800s, more Americans gained the right to vote and became more involved in the U.S. government. White males no longer needed to own land in order to vote. During the time that Jackson was president, people called this time period the Jacksonian Democracy, named after Andrew Jackson, because he fought for the common man and believed that the people should rule. Jackson saw himself as the spokesman of the common man. The common man meaning the average American. Jackson despised the wealthy, privileged bankers, investors, and merchants of the Northeast. But did this mean that everyone had a voice in government? What about slaves? What about women? Democratic changes took place under Jackson. We will be looking at three of these changes. The first thing that changed were campaign methods. There was an increase in the number of voters, meaning that new campaign methods started to emerge. Candidates held dinners, rallies, and public meetings. Jackson invited ordinary people to his inauguration to be sworn in as the U.S. president. The second Democratic change under Jackson was how a president was chosen. It used to be that party leaders selected their presidential candidate. However, this changes to where each political party elects their candidate by popular vote. The third Democratic change under Jackson were voting rights. In the 1820s, states eliminated the requirement that voters had to own property, so that most white males over 21 could vote. Next, we'll talk about the spoils system. Supporters and friends who helped Jackson in his election campaign were appointed to government official jobs, whether they were qualified for the position or not. Many presidents since then have done the same thing, where they too hire their friends in government official jobs. This practice has become known as the spoils system. Jackson believed that changing the office holders' jobs would give average citizens more experience in government. Jackson felt that if he circulated government jobs, this would prevent government corruption. Jackson replaced more government officials than any other president before him. Another new practice of Jackson's was the use of what would become known as his kitchen cabinet. Jackson relied on a group of advisors who would meet in the White House kitchen. Every president now has a group of advisors known as his cabinet. Jackson's official cabinet included men like future President Martin Van Buren. One of the first challenges that was faced by Jackson was the debate over a protective tariff, a tariff being a tax on imported goods. Currently, foreign goods were cheaper than American-made products. However, if a tariff was applied to foreign goods, then this would encourage American citizens from buying locally from their United States merchants as opposed to buying foreign goods. This protective tariff got mixed reviews from the country. Manufacturers in the North were in favor of the high tariff to protect their businesses from foreign competition. However, in the South, they favored low tariffs because they imported most of their manufactured goods. In 1828, Congress passed the highest tariff in United States history. Southern states were upset because they generally imported more goods than any other region in the United States. Tariffs were intended to protect the North. Angry Southerners called this law the Tariff of Abominations, abomination meaning extreme disgust and hatred. John C. Calhoun, who was Jackson's vice president, was from South Carolina. And just like the rest of the South, he was not in favor of this high tariff. Calhoun believed in state rights and thought that the state should have the right to nullify or cancel any federal law that they considered unconstitutional. Senator Hayne of South Carolina supported Calhoun's belief that a state had the right to nullify or cancel a law passed by Congress that they felt was unconstitutional or illegal. Senator Daniel Webster disagreed with Calhoun. He pointed out that it was up to the Supreme Court to determine whether a law was constitutional or unconstitutional, and that it was not up to the individual states. In a congressional 1830 meeting, Senators Daniel Webster and Senator Robert Hayne of South Carolina debated whether the supreme power belonged to the federal government or to the individual states. Daniel Webster ended his speech with, "Liberty and union, now and forever, one and inseparable." Jackson ultimately agreed with Webster's strong defense of national federal sovereignty. The debate over the protective tariff will be known as the nullification crisis. The federal government enforced a protective tariff. However, in South Carolina, they nullified the tariffs of 1828 and 1832, and they also threatened to secede, meaning that they wanted to officially withdraw from the United States if they were challenged and forced to pay the protective tariff. Congress passed the Force Bill, which authorized the United States military to use action in order to get the southern states to pay the protective tariff. Andrew Jackson was very upset to hear that his own Vice President, John C. Calhoun, was behind the idea of South Carolina seceding from the United States, that he even threatened to use the Army against South Carolina first and hang John C. Calhoun for almost breaking apart the country. It was no surprise that John C. Calhoun resigned as Vice President and went to South Carolina to help them support state rights. South Carolina avoided a civil war by accepting the 1833 Compromise Tariff. Henry Clay, nicknamed the Great Compromiser, proposed the Compromise Tariff through a reduction in tariffs for over the next 10 years. South Carolina withdrew its nullification law and averted a national crisis and civil war. Andrew Jackson showed that despite his support for state rights, he would use force if necessary to preserve the Union. The next thing we'll talk about is the Second Bank of the United States. President Washington introduced the National Bank as part of Alexander Hamilton's financial plan. A second national bank had been chartered in 1816 after the War of 1812. Jackson greatly disliked the National Bank. He thought the bank favored the rich and denied common people equal economic opportunity. When Jackson was re-elected in 1832, he ordered the removal of all federal deposits from the National Bank. This massive withdrawal of funds had a huge effect on the National Bank. Jackson moved all the federal money out of the Bank of the United States, and he put that money into state banks, which were later nicknamed pet banks. Without any money or funds, the National Bank was powerless. So the Bank of the United States died when its charter expired in 1836.